So it looks like we have another James Damore situation with another tech monolith. No, not Google. This time Microsoft, where workers are coming out right now saying that there's a discriminatory hiring practices against Asians and white males at their company. Well, that's not what The Verge says with their headline, which says, quote, Microsoft faces down on new claim that pro-diversity hiring isn't fair to white men. Controversial internal message board threads are highlighting dissent at Microsoft. So there's a lot to unpack here, a lot of identity, sex, politics, but let's just break it down as common sense, as much common sense as we can on this very highly divisive issue that, of course, is causing a huge debate. The article reads here, Microsoft employees have been using an internal message board to criticize the company's pro-diversity efforts, referring to the hiring of women and minorities as discriminatory against white and Asian men. According to a report from Quartz, Microsoft has left these threads untouched, drawing criticism from other employees who feel the company talks up its diversity and inclusive efforts, but takes little meaningful action to reinforce them at a cultural level. Now, again, the beginning chapter here just talks about a civil war at Microsoft with people complaining, hey, there's some discrimination. They're also making claims that Microsoft recruiters get paid more for diversity hires rather than the hiring white men and Asian men. That's one allegation from the workers. And the other employees are pissed off that there's even a discussion around this and that Microsoft hasn't banned the discussion. So that's what I get so far. Jason, feel free to interrupt me at any time, but it seems like Americans are just at each other's throats over identity once again and just stupid asinine policies. I will continue on with the article. The sentiments, some of which are shared in threads earlier this year and late last year, highlight tensions within the company. You do say, at an especially front time. Earlier this month, women at Microsoft began sharing stories of sexual harassment and discrimination and claiming the company has done little to nothing to resolve the issues. Now, that, of course, is a very also other serious allegation here. Their stories have since made internal headlines and prompted a response from CEO Satya Nadella, who says the company is as dedicated as ever to its diversity and inclusive efforts and will revamp how its human resources division investigates such cases. But Microsoft's lacks an official response to internal anti-diversity messages speaks to the challenges that the company faces in actually following through with its efforts. The situation is reminiscent of one of the Google faced with James Damore, a software engineer who was critical of his employees' diversity efforts and published an internal memo that implied female workers are not as proficient at technical roles as male workers. After several days, Google fired him for violating its code of conduct and advancing harmful gender stereotypes, as CEO Sundar Pinchna said at the time. What do you think about the James Damore case, Jason? Because to me, Google went a little bit far, and if you actually look at what James Damore wrote, I don't think it's advancing harmful gender stereotypes, but just talking about some of the truer kind of tropes in our kind of society that are usually generally the case. Not always, which James Damore stated, but he did say, hey, Asian men and white men, particularly Asian men, do have far more adaptness when it comes to technology and do more successfully in this particular field. That was the big controversy that happened, and he questioned some of the bigger roles. What do you think of James Damore, Jason?
I think he did a scientific paper that a lot of people got upset about. What I don't understand here is, first of all, let's look at the headline: "Fair to white men." Well, no, actually, it's white and Asian men. They take that right out of the headline. Why? Because it's a lot less controversial when you point that out. No one ever talks about Asians and diversity ever. And the thing is that it's not genetic. You know, they're not pointing out, they're like, well, Asians and white men, they're just better at everything. That's not what it is. You got to understand, culturally, they have been driven into these fields. That's one of the things that you have to look at. When you look at, like, Japanese society and the upper echelons of even society in China, people that are driven into that field, they're very driven. They're working 18, 20 hours a day at their craft to get there. And unfortunately, culturally, they're not pushing women into those same fields. That really talks about that gap it doesn't have anything to do with the color of their skin or their sex, Luke. It has to do how it's a nurture argument. Nature versus nurture. This is nurturing that field.
Well, China is a very male-dominated society. For when there was a one-child policy, a lot of the families decided to have males because the male, culturally, especially in China, are seen as the pretty much the breadwinners, the people who are supposed to take care of the family, take care of the grandparents, take care of their own parents, and they're the ones who have a lot of responsibilities. And that's why there's a huge ratio of men to women right now, and even public street competitions for men to even get a date. That's how crazy this is, and this is why I think this whole government and identity kind of larger conversation is just totally cancerous, and it's eating itself up alive. There's even another article here. I'll send it to you, Jason, through our message board. But there's even a group of Asian Americans who are suing Harvard because they're saying that there's discrimination against them because Harvard, is coming out and saying, "Hey, we're having too many Asians here." And again, that's kind of discriminatory. Don't you think people should be judged on their merits, not just on their race or what country they're coming from? And this brings an ultimate bigger case here. It just shows you how stupid this conversation was from the very beginning and how everyone is just eating themselves up like parasites. Should I keep reading this article from The Verge here?
Well, let's talk about that on merit, right? There was this guy, Luke, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but his name was Martin Luther King Jr., and he talked about how we judge each other on the content of one's character. Now, I'll take that a step further. We also hire each other and work with one another based on our skill sets and work ethic. So despite the fact that maybe there are more men in this field or Asians in this field per se, we shouldn't not hire them if someone is less qualified and has less merit. Don't we understand that? It's not about the color of somebody's skin or their origin. I am sure that there is a badass Icelandic princess, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, super coder out there, and she may be the exception to the rule, but she should be treated just like everybody else. Just like Al, the guy who's typing away and happens to be a white guy. Or Dan, the Asian American whose parents came over here and also had a proclivity towards computer science. I mean, give me a break. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the media playing these things up, and especially being deceptive with a lot of their headlines, does not help the situation.
Exactly. The Verge is being very deceptive here. They're trying to play up to, of course, their base. They're trying to play up this whole identity thing. The article gets really interesting here, but I don't think it's too far out of the stretch of the imagination to say, hey, culturally, Asians view education very highly, and they do spend more time. Their families and their parents incentivize their children more to spend with schooling. That's not crazy to say, and that's why Asians are outperforming a lot of Western people. That's not crazy to say. Should we discriminate against people who work harder? I don't think so as well. Microsoft, again, is a private company. They could do what they want, but they should be criticized here. The Verge continues. In this case, it appears Microsoft employees are pushing back against the notion that women and minorities in tech face outsized discrimination and harassment by saying the company is overcorrecting in its hiring practices and incentivizing managers to avoid hiring white and Asian men, which are predominantly representative of the tech workforce at every single major company in the industry. No disciplinary action appears to have been taken against any employee involved in these threads. That's the big issue here. Oh, you're talking about this happening? You should be punished. And that's kind of what the Verge is incentivizing here. It continues on, quote, does Microsoft have any plans to end the current policy that financially incentivizing discriminatory hiring practices? To be clear, I am referring to the fact that senior leadership is awarded more money if they discriminate against Asians and white men, reads one of the posts, which racked up hundreds of comments made by a female engineer This is a female engineer on the Microsoft-owned enterprise message app Yammer, according to courts. The post and others like it have been made largely in the CEO connection Yammer channel courts reports, meaning that they've designed to address topics employees want Nadala to address when he speaks to the whole company. Numerous threads like these remain open with comments intact. See, this is The Verge. Again, they brought this up like 5 times. There's people actually talking about this. Microsoft didn't delete them, censor, ban them, and destroy them like James Damore. How dare you? That's literally what The Verge is saying right now. It's insinuating, to be fair. Courts reports some included instances of employees dissenting from Microsoft official stance on diversity and demanding more evidence that a diverse workforce is beneficial for the company. Is it, though? Is it? Is it when you're not hiring people on merits, but just on race? Is it really that beneficial? Depends on what you're doing as well. If you're working in cultural aspects and local aspects, maybe if you, but again, outside of the realm of discussion here. Let me just finish off the article here. Microsoft tells The Verge that a higher level employee, including a member of the human resources team, have posted in one of the threads to say that the company does not allow for discrimination of any kind. Gee, then what? How do you answer to the main allegation here that your employees are saying recruiters are getting paid more for not hiring Asians or white males? How do you respond to that? If that's the case, if this employee on this thread is saying the truth, which wouldn't surprise me, then that's discrimination. Don't you agree? What do you think, Jason?
Once again, man, to go back to what you just said, I don't know if maybe they're working culturally. No, I'm sorry. Listen, even at Burger King, okay? If I'm at Burger King, and believe me, my first job, Luke, ever, in that kind of environment was up at the college working at basically the fast food place in the college that delivered stuff. So one of those things. I want the guy that's the best guy next to me. I don't care. I don't care what the color of his skin is. I don't care where he comes from. I don't think we need to be culturally diverse, and it would be the same exact thing if I was on a shoot and I was going to interview somebody, and I want the guy who knows how to use the audio equipment and the camera, the best, or the woman. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So this whole idea that the workplace is just not diverse enough, it's jackassery and ass clownery. I can't deal with it. It blows my mind that we're even speaking about this in 2019. Guys, you can be merit-based. You can achieve things. It doesn't matter who you are. Apparently, you can identify as a unicorn in 2019 and also achieve all sorts of great things. Maybe that's what we need. We need diversity unicorns in every single workplace, Luke.
Well, it depends, Jason. If you're an Asian, you may face discrimination at Harvard, according to the Asians suing Harvard right now, or even Microsoft right now. The Verge here really just makes this conversation totally insane. Continuing on here, saying, quote, "The situation highlights a complex compromise on behalf of tech companies that are often loath to impose restrictions on internal speech." The Verge is saying they don't restrict speech. They don't want to restrict speech. How dare they? But continuing on, but which also tend to fail at following through on broad diversity goals and hard choices related to workplace culture. Again, you're not diverse enough. That's what The Verge is pushing here. And then it reads here, Microsoft has also instructed its employees that pushing back against its diversity initiatives may negatively affect their careers. And I don't think having an honest conversation about this should affect your careers. I think we should be having that conversation, as this next study proves here with the headline, blind recruitment trial to boost gender equality, making things worse, study reveals. A measure aimed at boosting female employment in the workforce may actually be making it worse. A major study has found that blind recruitment, meaning applications of when your race, your gender, your sex wasn't listed, was supposed to allegedly, in this study, fix discrimination against women. It actually did the total opposite of that, and it saw less women hired when they did this study in Australia, which again proves that everything that they're trying to throw out here, everything that The Verge is trying to double down on, is just absolutely based on hooey. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section below. And anything else you want to say, Jason?
No, that's about it on this topic, but I do want to let people know that we are doing 4 videos a day, 3 on the backup, 1 on the main, Pulse channel, and We Are Change. Please subscribe, ring that bell, and listen, guys, they've changed the notifications yet again. So now if you want to be notified for every video, you actually have to select that option. Otherwise, you will only be notified every once in a while. So it's really important you get out there, you check us out every day, just go to our pages, you share this stuff on social media, but most importantly, when the chips are down, when it matters to you, when it's a real thing, when it's in your workplace, you got to be the change you want to see in the world.